YouTube, it's Tone back with another one for you. So this one here is a continuation of the book Meet Your Strawman. If you want the book, email me. Check it out. So this one here is talks about debt and things like that, and how the double booking entry and their accounting and all how all that shit works. How they're writing your loan in their books as a asset and a liability. To asset in the sense that they supposedly physically have tangible money, but then it's a liability because they have to pay it back to you. So a bank cannot legally uh, use their customers' deposited money to fund a loan. They cannot use their own money to fund a loan. So where do you think the fucking money comes from that they supposedly loan you? It comes from you. That's all. I'll fucking tell you, it comes from you. So going to court in connection with any civil action is a very bad idea, as the only function of a court is to judge between two parties who disagree and then penalize the loser. The court doesn't care who wins or loses, and the objective of the court is to make a profit for its owners, as it is a commercial enterprise and its purpose is to acquire money from anybody who is foolish enough to attend. If you look at the summons, which is really an invitation to go to the court, you will see that it is not your name, but in the name of a straw man, which they are hoping to fool you into representing, dealing with the debt. Because of a very high percentage of the money earned being taken away from the average person, it is not unusual for people to end up with what looks like debt, supposed debt. Uh, Most people spend their time worrying over the statement of what they are told that they owe and do endless calculations to see if they agree with the numbers which they have been sent. Again, this is the sort of misdirection which magicians use to fool audiences, distracting their attention away from where the action is really taking place. Here, the question is not really how much is owed, but instead, is anything actually owed, right? So when you get in the habit, and I always tell people who, my clients, when we're doing like debt discharge and things like that with collections or whatever, not to argue with these people about the actual amount. It's you're talking about contracts and what the fuck do I even really actually owe you? You know what I'm saying? Especially with a debt collections where you don't even have a contract with these people. They are not authorized to publish any of your information unless you fucking agree to it. You don't have a contract with them. You don't owe them shit. So instead of calling and arguing about fucking how much you owe them, call them and ask them who the fuck said that they could ever publish your goddamn name to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Have that be the, because when I because I called them one time and dropped a hammer on these fucking assholes, and about a week later that shit was all taken off my thing. You know what I'm saying? I sent them a fee schedule and all that. They're in the business to make money, not to lose money. So when you put them on point, you put them on notice, they're gonna get rid of all that shit. So you need to remember that any financial institution is a legal fiction and does not actually exist. As a result of this, it can only deal with other legal fictions, essentially other pieces of paper. And it can't have any dealings with a man or a woman, as they are not legal fictions. It is also important to understand what passes for money nowadays. Let's say our trusty friend James Martin is looking for a loan, and he fills out an application form with the Swindle Bank Incorporated for $10,000. Interestingly, the form which he asked to sign says he has already received $10,000, although the loan has not been approved yet. So how the fuck does that work? I'll tell you right now. We'll get into that. So, what do we got? The next day, the loan is approved and James is handed a check, which he is asked to sign and deposit to his account with the bank. We won't follow up on that very interesting procedure at this time, but please remember that he has now provided two signatures for $10,000 in the Strawman name, and all he has received is one, and 4 zeros in the account of the Swindle Bank. See how that works? Your signature is the money. All goes well for several months until James loses his job and does not manage to get another one. This is financial trouble which he does not know how to deal with. Time goes by and James has had sufficient money to make payments against his loan from the Swindle Bank. He starts getting letters from the bank saying that he must pay the arrears immediately and keep up with payments in the future. There is not the slightest chance of this happening, as James does not have the money and he does not know what to do. Fortunately, Peter, the next door neighbor of James, happens to be an independent financial advisor with years of experience, and James has had the idea of asking him for help. Peter is willing to help, so he sits down and goes through all the paperwork. Then he tells James, "You must ignore this situation. Write back immediately and say that you agree to pay any financial obligations which you might lawfully owe on the condition that they provide the validation of debt, that is the actual accounting, verification verification of their claim against you, that is a signed invoice. And number 3, a copy of the contract binding both parties, you and them, in a letter by certified mail so that there is an independent witness to it having been delivered. Every letter you write should be marked clearly without prejudice, which means that you reserve all your lawful rights and you accept no contract unless it is shown to be lawful by meeting the 4 essential conditions to a lawful binding contract. And so keep in mind that, so the validation, verification, all that shit might work. I don't do that. I take a different method. And also we go through the Treasury Department, we go through IRS criminal investigations, and we go through IRS auditing department. So when you send all these shits off, like I do, over to them, the criminal investigations and the validation, the auditing department, they end up getting rid of these fucking debts pretty fucking fast, because a lot of people don't want the IRS ripping into their fucking books. And everything that we do, everything that I do, is according to law. So, and I deal, with the criminal investigation division department and the auditing department, right? Which the courts don't want them going up in that motherfucker for sure. And neither do these fucking collection companies. So that's why we always get remedy and we get fucking results. All we have are solutions over here on this side. So these are the 4 essential elements that are lawfully required to meet the conditions of a binding contract. Full disclosure: you are not told that you were actually creating the credit with your wedding signature. 2, equal consideration: they brought nothing of value to the table and so had nothing to lose. Right? 3, and so what they do is just basically it's administrative scam artists, essentially, just like the courts and all that shit too. And when you understand the way that administrative law works, is that if you fucking ignore a presentment, then you essentially acquiesce to the terms of it, and then you become liable for it. That's how that shit works. So lawful terms and conditions. Yours were based on fraud. 4, the wedding signatures of both parties, corporations can't sign because they have no right or mind to contract, since they are soulless legal fictions, and furthermore, no third party can sign a contract on their behalf. So it's you making a contract with yourself, and they're fucking throwing themselves in there acting like you fucking owe them something. That's what's happening with every fucking loan that you ever took. So Peter then tells James that agreeing to pay, provided that evidence of a lawful debt can be produced, stops him being taken to court, because courts can only adjudicate between parties who are in dispute. And as James has agreed to pay, there is no dispute, so the court would not accept any application for a hearing. If the swindle bank were foolish enough to try, James has only to send the court a copy of his letter agreeing to pay, and the case would be thrown out, dismissed immediately, and the bank might well be penalized for wasting the court's time. The bank is now in trouble, and it has been running a con game on James, and so can't produce the documents for which James has asked the request for. James was a reasonable in every respect of he went out of his way to try and go ahead and make that right, giving them a conditional acceptance upon proof of claim, which is a good tactic. Absolutely. I would have went the other route and probably just sued them directly for fraud at that point, right? And get a forensic audit done on them, right, on the fucking accounting, to show that the money came from nowhere, it came from out of their ass, and it was entered into your bank account the minute that you fucking signed that goddamn paper. So that just proves that you're the one giving yourself the money, right? So the request by James was reasonable in every respect. However, a loan agreement is a contract, and so there has to be a full disclosure of all details, which there wasn't. Both sides have put up something of equal worth, which didn't happen, and the contract has to be signed in wet ink by both parties, which the bank can't do. So the bank has a real problem. And that's the thing, is that the bank is not even a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're always gonna get people speaking on behalf of, but you can never get the bank to stand and state his name for the record in court. So what the fuck do they even fucking expect you to do? You know what I'm saying? The shit is just obvious fraud. So here it goes. So the bank will probably send a statement of what it wants James to believe is the outstanding amount. James should return this with a polite note saying that a statement is not an invoice, so would they please provide an invoice as requested. They will also probably send a photocopy of his loan application form, at which point James write back and point out politely that it does not constitute a contract, and it is only signed by one of the parties, which is himself, and he asked for a copy of a contract signed by both parties. Okay? So the bank never fucking signed to be a part of anything, and they don't do anything. They're just fucking middlemen. Alright? The bank is likely to go silent at this point and stop correspondence with James. James should then write again requesting that the necessary documents be sent to him within the next 14 to 28 days, and if that does not happen, then he will consider the debt to be fully discharged. The bank will either remain silent or write back to say that the debt is fully discharged. If the bank tries phoning, then just tell them politely that you only wish to deal with this matter in writing. Fuck yeah. That's how I get down. I'm not gonna sit here and fucking yap back and forth with some assholes on the phone. You fucking out of your mind, bro. Out of your fucking mind. And you need these people not only to do that, but send you, any claims in the form of an affidavit signed in wet ink by whoever the fuck is willing to put their ass on the line. All right. So if the bank remains silent for the stated period of time, then James should write back stating that due to the bank's failure to provide the necessary evidence of a lawful debt within the reasonable period of time provided, that James now considers the debt is fully discharged and asks the bank to confirm that in writing. The bank will normally write back confirming that the debt is fully discharged and that there is nothing owing, and if it does not do that, then it will just stop asking for any further payments. And so I mean, that's what they're gonna do anyway, right? And they're gonna fucking sit here and try to what do you call it? They're gonna sit here and try to fucking, I don't know, I forgot what the fuck I was gonna say. I was just writing down that time there. So anyway, moving on. The reasons for how and why this takes place takes a good deal of explaining, and many people find it difficult to understand. So it is covered in detail on the following pages here. Many people think that this process sounds like you're ripping off the bank, but this is definitely not the case. And it isn't the fucking case. Even though if they don't fucking discharge it, it'll stay on the books and they'll just fucking write it off for 3 years anyway. Which is crazy, and that's what the fucking collection companies do too. They're gonna sit there with your debt that they bought off somebody else, which at that point discharges the debt as soon as they buy it. You don't owe the other party that you had a contract with. You don't owe them shit. Now this fucking place is acting like you owe them something when they just bought that debt. What they're doing with the debt is monetizing it, because debt is money. So they're gonna claim that shit on the back end from the fucking Treasury Department and get a check sent to them on the private side, and they're gonna fucking write that shit off for 3 years as a fucking loss. So they're getting the money twice there, and then they're sending you a bill acting like you fucking owe them something. Yeah, right, bro. Try again. So what is money? Originally in England, the unit of money was called £1 sterling. That was because it's literally sterling silver weighing £1. As it is quite difficult to carry several pounds weight of currency around with you, it was arranged that the actual silver could be held in a bank, and a promissory note, which was essentially a receipt for the deposit of each pound of silver on deposit, was issued. So it was easier to carry these bank notes around and to do business with them. If you wanted to, you could always take these notes to a bank and ask for them to be cashed out, and the bank would hand you the equivalent weight of sterling silver in exchange for those notes. Right, so say you have $100 worth of gold, you give it to the bank because you don't want to carry it. They give you a security that is issued against the value of the tangible gold. That's how that works, and that's how U.S. currency used to work. So, but it doesn't anymore. Now they just make it out of fucking thin air, and they crazy. Today, the currency in America is banknotes, which are certainly easier to carry around than metal coins, but there is one very important difference. These notes are issued by the private company called the Federal Reserve, which is good as a company of any other name. They're just a fucking private corporation, the Federal Reserve. Know that, because I didn't know that up until a few years ago. I thought they were part of the government because they call themselves federal, but so isn't fucking FedEx, right? And they're not part of the government. Come on. So, however, if you were to take one of their banknotes to a branch of that company and ask for it to be cashed, all they would do is give you another note with the with the same numbers of credit printed on it, or alternatively, other notes with smaller numbers printed on them. This is because, unlike the original banknotes, there is nothing of any physical value backing up the banknotes of today. They are only materially worth the physical paper on which they are printed. And I mean, another funny side note too, why don't you go ahead and Google the color of Monopoly money and Google the color of U.S. currency. Same exact color. All right. So for each note too, by mind you, it actually gets worse than that. What happens most commonly nowadays is that they do not even bother printing those pieces of paper. Now they just tap some numbers into a computer record, or if they are old-fashioned enough, they write the numbers into a ledger by hand. What do those numbers represent? Nothing at all. They actually have no value. In other words, they are just as much value as if you typed them into your own computer. It's quite meaningless, and yet a bank or other financial institution will merrily lend you those numbers in return for years of your work plus interest charges. Now, isn't that generous of them? Yeah, it missed me with the bullshit, bro. How about that one? Actually, that is not all funny, because if you don't keep paying them the money you earned every week for very real work, they will attempt to take your house and possessions away from you. This won't happen if you understand that what they lent you was actually valueless. Take the case Jerome Daly of Minnesota. In America, in court, Jerome challenged the right of the bank to foreclose on his home, which had been purchased with a loan from the bank. Jerome argued that any mortgage contract required both parties, that is himself and the bank, put up a legitimate form of property for exchange. In legal language, that is called legitimate consideration, put forward by both parties of the contract. Right? So everybody has to have skin in the game. It's the same way as the court making fucking random ass claims to you, acting like there's somebody for one, and then not even having no fucking skin in the game. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Look, if I'm putting my freedom on the line, so the fuck ain't you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, I'm willing to bet my life. What the fuck you think I'm doing here right now? I'll put my life on the line that what the fuck I'm saying is 100% true and correct. All right? So I don't want to hear shit from anybody fucking making shit up with any fairy tale bullshit stories, bro, because we can get it popping, bro. For real. Know that. So, because I know I'm right. So in the end, I will win no matter what the fuck happens. I will win in the end because I'm 100% true and 100% walking in the light. All right. So Jerome explained that the money was, in fact, not the property of the bank, and was not the property of the bank, as it has been created out of nothing as soon as the loan agreement was signed. That is, the money does not come out of the bank's existing assets, as the bank is simply inventing it, and in reality, the bank is putting up nothing of its own except for a fictional liability on paper. As the court case progressed, the president of the bank, Mr. Morgan, took the stand and admitted that the bank, in combination with the privately owned commercial company called the Federal Reserve Bank, created the entire amount of the loan in credit in its own books by means of keeping entry, the money and credit coming into existence when they created it. Furthermore, Mr. Morgan admitted that no United States law or statutes exist which give him the right to do this. A lawful consideration must exist and must be tendered to support the loan agreement. The jury found that there has been no lawful consideration put forward by the bank, so the bank rejected the banker's application for foreclosure, and Jerome Daly kept his home debt-free. That is exactly the situation with all American mortgages. When someone makes an application for a mortgage or any other loan, the applicant's signature is required on the application form before the loan is approved. The signature on that signed application makes it a valuable piece of paper which the bank can deposit in its accounts as credit to the bank for the amount of the loan. The bank could just keep that application form and stay ahead by $100,000 or whatever, but they want more, much more. They want the borrower to pay them the same amount again, funding it by years of labor, and not only the amount of the supposed loan, but significant extra amount of interest as well. Why do you think they are so keen on lending you money? Because that they are even willing to lend people with very poor credit, as there is no way that the bank can lose on the deal no matter what happens. And that's a fact. Because how can they fucking lose anything when they didn't fucking put nothing in it? You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Come on, man. Get the fuck out of here with that dumb shit. Get the fuck out of here with that dumb shit. So, right here. So this is why if a company starts demanding payment of large sums of money, you start by asking them to provide the accounting for the deal, right? Forensic accountant. Let me get an accountant on that, and you're going to have to prove to me in the fucking books that you actually pulled that money out of an account that you claim if I don't pay you back is somehow going to be a loss. They can't do that. They fucking pull it out of their fucking ass, all right? Period. So in other words, you are asking them to show in writing that they provided something of genuine worth, their side of the loan contract. As they invented the money, the numbers in their books with no real worth attached to those numbers, they are in deep trouble as they can't comply with your demand to see that they're accounting for the deal. Did you ever wonder how the average bank manages to make hundreds of millions of dollars profit every year? Well, you're looking at right where a large chunk of it comes from. the bookkeeping, this next part of the information may be a little difficult to understand. When any business is being run, the accounts for the recorded are recorded as money coming in and money going out. So that's assets and liabilities. For the banking, money coming in this is called a credit, and the money going out is called a debit. And that's really all that there is credits and debits as far as how the commercial system operates today. So the objective is to have these two amounts always match each other, balance for any customer. Not everything done in banking is immediately obvious to the average person, so it may be a little difficult to understand how everything works in this area. If you have an account with a bank and you deposit $200 to open the account, the bank enters in its books as a credit. The credit on your account is $200 and the debit is $0, so the balance has a positive or credit value of $200. And so this is all crucial information to know. This is all crucial information to understand. Facts. Let's see what we got here. So if you were to withdraw $300, then the bank would record this as a debit of $300. When the credit balance on your account is $200, the balance on your account would be $100 in debit. That is overdrawn by $100. If you were to deposit a further $100 and then close your account, the bank would not have any problem other than the fact that they would like to keep you as a customer. As far as the accounting goes, your account is balanced and the bank is satisfied with the state of affairs. $300 has come in and $300 has gone out. The book's balance, case closed. Now, if you were to apply for a loan, a mortgage or otherwise, for $100,000 from the bank, they would give you an application form which is set out in such a way that you have to fill out the strawman's name rather than your own, separate boxes with one of them containing Mr., and they may even require you to fill out a form in using block capital letters. You may think that the capital letters are so that they can read your writing and perhaps make it easier for it to be entered into the computer, but the name is those capital letters belong to the strawman and not you. You have actually just made an application on behalf of the strawman, not on behalf of yourself. Right? So who actually fucking owes the goddamn money? Who actually owes that fucking money? The straw man. It's fictitious. Everything about it is fucking 100% fraudulent. All right? So you might wonder why they would want you to do this. After all, what could they ever get from the straw man? Well, you might be surprised. When the straw man was incorporated, they assigned a large monetary value to it, possibly 100 million or more. It's definitely more. It's like 300 million now. And if they have been trading it on the stock market on behalf of the straw man ever since, right? Which is fine, whatever, because they're keeping the country running and all that shit. But you see what the fuck happens. They ended up turning into fucking tyrants. You know what I'm saying? And so you know how many years it has been. So very surprisingly, in their opinion, the little fellow is very rich, and you have just authorized them to take the amount of your loan application from the strawman's account. So before the bank passes you any money, it has already gotten money from the strawman account and is entered into his books as 100,000 credit to your loan account. Then they place 100,000 into your loan account as a debit. Interestingly, that loan account is now balanced, and you could easily be closed off as a complete deal. So this is where the sneaky part comes in. To get the money out of your account, you have to write a check and sign $100,000 on that account. What does that bank do with the checks it signs? It assigns them to the account as an asset of the bank, and suddenly the bank is ahead by $100,000 because the check is in the name of the straw man, who can supply the bank with almost any amount of money. Limitless credit. But it doesn't end there, and the bank is confident that you know so little about what's going on that you will pay them anything up to the $100,000 over years against what you believe you owe them. If that happens, then they have made yet another $100,000 for the bank. To make things even better for them, they want you to pay them interest on the money which you supposedly owe them. Overall, they make a great deal of money when you borrow from them, so perhaps you can see now why the banks make hundreds of millions of dollars of profit per year. Shit is crazy, man. So you see what's going on? This is why you fucking need to know the stupid ass corny games that these people play. It's all a swindle fucking scam. It is a game of chess. Stop playing checkers with these fucking assholes. That's what I got for you for now. Until we meet again.